Alright, this video is going to be on how to streamline Canvas to make it simple for your students to use. So I'm going to go into my class, and the first thing I do, and I normally do this at the beginning of the year, but you can do it at any time, is I go into settings and then I'll go to navigation. And here you can decide what your students see. So I normally move a bunch of stuff under here that I don't really need them getting to, that aren't important. So normally what I want them to get to is the home page, where I normally on the home page I have my like modules. I have an announcements page. Sometimes if I'm not using this, then I won't show it. So in the beginning I didn't have it here. So if I didn't want it to show, and you'll see it, not visible to students, if I move this like down here, right? And once I save it, and you do have to make sure you save it at the bottom, then students won't be able to see that. But I do want them to see it. So I also want them to be able to see grades. I filled in a syllabus. Again, if you don't want this there, you can move it down. I like to have grade sync here. It's more for me than it is for the students. I'm not even sure if we'll see in a minute if they can see it. This is if you go to grades and you click sync for it to send it to PowerSchool, that you can see that it went through or not. So like attendance I won't use. Chat, I'd be careful with things like chat anyway, depending on your students, because some of them will just talk about things that are irrelevant, so you'd have to heavily monitor this. I have my modules under the home page, so I don't like to have that on there twice. Let's see what else. People would show everyone that's in the class, so other like students can see them. Let's see. There's other things in here that you might want to have. I don't like to have assignments out. It will show all of your assignments, and some students will just click here. I also don't like having quizzes because I really want them to follow the outline I have that's on the home page, which is the modules. But if you have a different like home page that is like clickable links and stuff, you might want to have modules open. So you could have pages, files, you could have quizzes there if you wanted to, if you wanted them just to get to those. Same thing with discussions. Sometimes I have discussions. It really depends. So if whatever you want it up here. The less you have, the less they can click on, the easier it is for them to navigate. And I'll show you what it looks like in a second. So I'm going to save that. And I'm going to go back to home. Now, the way you can see what it looks like for students is if you go on the right-hand side and you click on Student View. I'm going to click on Student View, and this is helpful for really a lot of things. So if I go in here, and now you can see that I only have home, announcements, grades, and syllabus there. So that helps with that. I like to have modules instead of having those clickable pages. So for here, so that's not as relevant. So that when I have these assignments, so I only have one unit normally visible at a time, but they're going from like top to bottom. And so they're just doing assignments all the way kind of down. And that will streamline it. Instead of having a bunch of clickable different links that'll take them to different places in Canvas, you really don't need all that. You can have it so it's over here and easy for them to just click on. So that's the syllabus. If it's certain links, if it's like an assignment that I want them to go somewhere to, like for example, like government games, I would go in here and put the link in here instead of making a bunch of buttons, and I like to keep it a little bit more simple. I also like to make anything that's a link, make it this blue font, so when you edit it, so if I were to go into, so leave student view, and I go in here and I edit, I want to go in and instead, because normally it'll end up some lighter color, so I'll go under here and I had to make this, I think, and it's because this was not an option, they had these more pastel-y ones, so I went in here and you just click on, your row and whatever, and here's the color you'll get, and then it adds it to your most recent. But this is a typical color for links, so that will also help right there. So this I'm gonna cancel. So I try to keep this really to a minimum. I know buttons look cool, pages look cool, putting a lot of things there, but that makes it a little bit more difficult for students to see and click on. The other thing I do under here is I make specific units. So if you were doing, let's say, specifically a unit for English, whatever unit it happens to be, I would create a module, and this creates your title basically, and or let's say math, and let's say it's like order of operations, for example, and I added that, and this one's going to be at the bottom. So here now I'm going to add like assignments, and you go in here and either make a quiz, a discussion, whatever you want, and then you'll add it. When I do this, I only have the unit visible that we're on. So I'll publish that so that they can see what's under here. As soon as that unit is done, once the grades are done, I will click here and I will unpublish it so they can no longer see it. So that way, like this. So that way they don't see all of this. I see all of this, but all they are seeing is this and this. So it's not as overwhelming. That will also streamline it a lot. If I were to have all of these visible, they'd be scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and I asked them to find something, it would be a little bit more difficult. Then let me go back just so you can see again. So if they're looking here, they don't see anything below government, right? So all they're seeing are these two things here. And so as soon as we're done with this, I'm going to unpublish it so that they can't see it. And that will make it easier when you say, oh, go to this and this assignment. It'll be easier for them to find. So that normally helps a lot, I would say, to do something like, this, to where you don't have a bunch of stuff here. And I would definitely use the student view to see, what it looks like for students. That way you can simplify it. Again, I know there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with buttons and links and so forth. But I prefer to keep it simple than making it look interesting, but then be more complicated. So that is kind of the first part. I'll probably make another video that's a little bit more detailed that can help you some more, especially if you do want to do some of these pages and make it a little bit more fancy. But again, I would, especially if you're starting out, try to keep this nice and simple.